But Paris was sick at heart when he saw who had met the challenge, and shying from death, shrank back into the ranks. As a man in a steep ravine starts when he sees a snake, trembles in every limb, and retreats with pallid face, so godlike Paris, fearing Atrides, hid among the throng of Trojan warriors. In the preceding verse, we've just seen that Menelaus, strength of the people, has leapt down from his chariot, which I think is a little bit ridiculous because it's in front of the frontline troops rather than behind them, although that's an issue later on in book 4 as well, if you go and look at lines 297 to 300. And clearly Menelaus means business, doesn't he? You can see he's really up for Paris's blood. And of course Paris sees him, and in the same phrase in this line, in line 29, in the same phrase as was used with Menelaus in the corresponding verse, 21, he's shaken to the core. Paris really wets himself now. 31, kataplege philon itor, was smitten in his own or dear heart. Philon, in the formula philon itor, is always quite hard to translate, and it means more like his own and yet dear. So perhaps shaken to his core is the best way to go about this. Okay, right, so let's have a little look at the vocabulary that we're going to need. We've already had it once before, on line 21, so I think all I have to say really is that you'll notice how loved by Ares, Menelaus has been replaced by godlike Alexander. So we'll probably do this line 30 with 31, so we can get a complete meaning out of it. So let's look at 31 as well. We got this N, which of course means in, doesn't it? Promachoisi. Promachoisi. Well, that comes from promachos and is a champion, someone who fights in front, a champion. Phalenta is an aorist participle, and it comes from the verb phainomai, which means appear. And we've got this verb kataplege, which is an aorist passive as well, and that comes from katapleso, and that means to shake. And philon itor, we just talked about, to his very core. Okay. So let's go for a translation then. So starting from line 30, we've got godlike Alexander, and then the verb enoesen, which means noticed. Godlike Alexander noticed him appear among the champions, the people fighting at the front, and was shaken to his core. Okay, doesn't bode well, does it, for him? So now we're on to line 32, and quite honestly, this is the most embarrassing thing from a Trojan perspective. We've got this word aps, and that means back or back again. So we've had Paris acting the clown, dressed up, to fight, and then the Greeks come along and say, right, okay, we'll have a fight, sure, and they bring their champions force, and of course this is where Paris's knees start knocking, and he's really not as brave as he'd like to make out. So we've got this word aps, back again, heteros, companion, so heteron, and ethnos, we'll get the derivative of the English word ethnic from this. Ethnos means people or host. Okay, then we've got the word echazeto, which comes from chazomai, which means to shrink back. Chazomai. And the word ker we've had is feminine, it means the word for death. Ker, keros. And then we've then got the word alainon, and a participle in the nominative. Well, the verb alaino means to avoid. Okay, so let's start. If we're going to go for a rough translation of that line 32, we're going to start off clearly then with the nominative, which is at the end of the sentence, alainon. Okay, avoiding, care, avoiding, avoiding death, echazeto, he shrank back, back to the ranks or the host of his people. Okay, so I'll put up a nicer translation, but the idea, I think, of course, is that avoiding death, he shrank back to the his own the ranks of his companions, his own people. Pretty sad. This line 32 is a bit formulaic. This simile appears 7 times, in fact, in the Iliad, with a couple of other variations, and it doesn't usually imply any cowardice, unlike what I've been implying in the previous line, but rather a sensible response to overwhelming odds. Menelaus, of course, is not one of the most powerful Greek princes. He's certainly no Achilles or Ajax, but the mere sight of him has put an end to Paris's warrior pretensions, I think. So it really does show him for what he is. In terms of the vocabulary for line 33, we know that we're getting another simile because we're starting off with this hos dote. Hos de hote. Yeah, it's got a rough breathing. As when. And we've got this tiste, someone. Tiste, someone. Drakontos is a dragon. Yeah. Well, that's the derivative in English. Drakon, a lizard. But of course, it's a snake. Here it's a snake. Palinorsos. Palinorsos is an adjective meaning back. And apeste is another nomic aorist. Maybe we ought to, in lesson time, have a little look at these nomic aorists to see what we're supposed to understand by them. Nomic aorists, apeste, and that comes from aphistomai, which means to stand away from. So if we want to have a go at a rough translation then, so hos de hote, as when, tiste, someone, generalized, seeing a snake, stands back, okay? Someone startled by us coming across a snake jumps back. That's the idea. So in line 34, this metaphor continues. It's quite concisely expressed, and the subject is an anonymous person, perhaps a shepherd. This tiste, generalising, yeah. A shepherd who recoils when he sees a snake in the mountain glens and trembling seizes his limbs beneath, and he moves backwards or he jumps backwards swiftly, and paleness takes his cheeks. So once again did he slip into the throng of the proud Trojans. This is Paris, of course. Dysas, in fear of Atreus' son, of course. We'll talk about the name in a second. The parataxis, once the comparison is established, is remarkable and effective, as are the nomic aorists that we really need to dedicate some time to. Okay, let's have a little look at the vocabulary for line 34. And you can see it starts off with this ureos, which is coming from a word you should know. It's the genitive of oros, or mountain. Okay. This bese is a ravine or a glen. Thromos, masculine as well. Bese is feminine. Thromos is masculine. Trembling. guia, ta guia, neuter plural, limbs, and hupo, elabe. We've got some more tmesis going on here. Takes his knees from underneath. Takes his knees from underneath. So let's have a go at having a rough translation. So looking at line 34, we've got Urios en beses. So standing apart, stands back quickly to the line before when he sees the snake in the ravine of a mountain, or in the glen of a mountain. Hupe te tromos elebeguia, trembling, takes his limbs. Yeah. So the idea from underneath, takes his limbs from beneath him. His knees start knocking. Okay. So clearly, Paris' simile is showing his fear of Menelaus. So line 35, and it starts off with this aps, which means back again, and we have the verb anachoreisen. He withdrew or went back. Yeah, he withdrew back. He went back. And then in the nominative we have this word ochros, which is masculine, and it means paleness or pallor, pallid. I think there's a derivative in English coming from ochre, ochros. Anyway, there we have it. Min, which is like our auton in Attic Greek, and we've also got this word paraya, which is feminine and it means cheek, and it's in an accusative of respect here. Of course, that aile is a verb, isn't it? Coming from aireo, which is to take, I think. So let's have a go at translating this. So he ran back, or he withdrew back, and then in this phrase, ochros te min aile paireas, we have the pallid or pallor or paleness took his cheeks. Okay, so he's gone white basically. Okay, so now we're looking at line 36, and we start off with this word hose, don't we? And then autis, and hose, of course, makes you think that we're about to end our simile. So hose here will probably be translated as just so. Autis is the same as the Attic althis with a theta. Homilos, the crowd or host. Edu is the, well, it goes with the kath. We've got tmesis again. Kata duo, which means to sink into. Troon of the Trojans, Greek genitive, and we've got this agerojos, the noble or lordly, agerojos. Okay, so let's put that all together. So what we had before, he'd run back, his face is pale, and just so, and then he sank, just in this way, he sank back into the hosts of the lordly Trojans, okay, the noble Trojans. So he's hidden himself away from the possibility of having this duel. Right, so now we're going to look at line 37, final one in this section, and we're going to come across the name Atreus, and And both Agamemnon and Menelaus, brothers, are both frequently referred to as the sons of Atreus. So that's worth knowing. We also have seen quite a lot about the character of Paris in this last 5 or 6 lines. So Paris is characterised partly through this fourth simile, and partly through the reproachful words of Hector, which are about to come, his older brother. Now, although Paris has stolen Helen from Sparta, because according to Hector, he is woman mad, that he actually used that word, so gunai manes, he does not have the skills or courage to fight Menelaus and assert his rights over her. We'll talk about Hector in a second, perhaps in the next video. Let's finish off this line 37 though. So we need to look at the word dysas, which is at the front there. It comes from the verb dido, which means fear. Atrios we've spoken of. Huion is son, isn't it? And Alexandros Theoides in the nominative is clearly the subject. So let's just finish off the translation for this section. So godlike Alexander fearing the son of Atreus, meaning brackets Menelaus. Okay, so I'll put a nice translation for all that, but that's the last bit. So ends. So Paris's courage has failed, and we're about to get to the section where Hector criticises him to his face.